This is the first ever ranking of U.S. retailers by the value of their brand. That said, let me get started and kind of talk about what we're going to do here. First of all, we want to tell you a little bit about who we are, and then something about really why we did this and why we think it's really important to value brands. Alfred's going to talk about really how we do it, because it's a very interesting and proven methodology. And then we're going to get into the list. We're going to talk about all 50 retail brands, the top 50 retail brands by value. And then we're going to kind of go into some trends and some insights that we've learned about that, and then some conclusions. So, why do we really do this? Now, why do we think this is important to do? Basically, the concept of ranking is really new to retail. This is going to be the first time we've ever done it. We're ranking the most valuable retail brands in the United States. We think to understand that the current trends and challenges in this industry, it's really important to understand where these retail brands are ranked. We also think we need to seek what kind of insights, what kind of things are happening out there with these retail brands that really create value to their owners. And also, we want to encourage greater sensitivity and awareness of the fact that there really is a value to a retail brand. So why is brand important? Why is it important to retailers? This is it. Brand drives choice. Consumers are choosing different retailers because of the way they perceive the brand. And a clear proposition creates demand, and it really determines the value on the product and the service. Brand connects, in a sense, to everything about the business, everything the consumer touches or experiences, and that includes real estate, to packaging, signage, etc., e-commerce, store design. Brand encompasses it all. I'm understanding your brand strategy, therefore, and your brand value. So now I come to how are we do this, or how have we done this, if you want to say it. To that, I'm going to turn it over to Alfred, whose group is the analytics group inside Interbrand Design Forum. He's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Morning, everyone. I'm just going to spend a few minutes, especially for you process-minded folks, about how we actually come to these values. We valued a number of brands in order to come up with our top 50 list. But we'll just give you a quick background as to how we go about doing it. So let's dive in just a little bit more deeply into, we won't go into the finances and bore everyone with that, but let's go into a little bit more about how branding in retail generates value. And the first thing, as you see up on the screen, is it influences consumer choice. And that assures a higher level of future earnings. The second thing that it does, it's a key competitive asset. And as I mentioned earlier, it gives you that higher level of security, or determines what level of security you have of future earnings. Together, these drive the overall value. And we do these in two different ways, in two different indicators, and that's the role of brand and brand strength. And I'll just take the last couple of slides here, giving you a little bit more flavor as to what role of brand and brand strength are. Managing brand means knowing its role. Brand can play a couple of different roles depending on what category or industry that we're in. Clearly, when we talk about choice of airline, it's often due to convenience or price, proximity to a hub. It may not often be very much due to brand. Could be a little bit with frequent flyers, but generally it just drives consideration. On the other end of the scale, brand does determine value because it really drives choice. We see this a lot in luxury goods, where brand plays a very high role. And on this slide, you can see, based on our experience of calculating brand values over the past 20 years, we understand various industries, and you can see in the luxury good items that the role of brand is very, very high, because consumers such as ourselves are going to buy regardless of price. It translates differently, obviously, into more commodity type goods. So big, large businesses who purchase bulk chemicals. If we go out and purchase milk or salt, much lower roles of brand. Brand still plays a role, but it's much more reduced. It's diminished. Thanks to a Nobel Prize-winning economist, we can actually calculate specifically by numbers the role of brand. We can measure it. We do surveys in order to calculate this, and we can get exactly at that role of brand versus other choice components for the consumer. And then finally, just a bit about brand strength. Brand strength is made up of 7 different components in which we've evaluated all these different brands. It is in a competitive context. A few that we might highlight here are leadership. Size does matter. At the same point, influence is very important. So you could have a smaller competitor who may have a very innovative strategy that could change the entire industry and might score very well here. Another one might be about trend. Are people keeping up with it? Understanding what the latest, what the consumers want and demand from it. Are they delivering innovation in that sense? Are they delivering the quality against their brand promise? And finally, let's talk a little bit about protection and the store experience and differentiation. Are brands that are stretching into the private label world capturing the value that's located in those?
Here are the bottom 5. This is 50 through 45. I think this is real interesting to see. We're going to point out a couple things as we do it. At number 47, Whole Foods is the only grocery retailer that made the list. The only grocery retailer that's in the top 50. Very unique positioning, very strong brand, and obviously organic side.
I love to talk about Tractor Supply, a company a lot of people, maybe a lot of you aren't familiar with. Lee and I being from the great state of Illinois, we know about it. They're very clear to their brand proposition. They know exactly how they deliver against their proposition and to their consumer, and have been very good, especially around integrating all the different touch points of their experience. Netflix here is a very interesting brand at number 32. Clearly not one that has any retail locations whatsoever, exclusively online, but one where, and I pre-mentioned this a little bit earlier in the slide, has had a big effect on their category, changed, revolutionized what they did in terms of DVD rentals, and is still thinking about what's going to be the next 5 years and figuring out the innovation of how they're going to deliver streaming video directly to one's PC and perhaps televisions going forward.
And I think Radio Shack also deserves some mention here. With 6,000 outlets, as opposed to American Girl and others, they are very narrow casting. I mean, they really have a very focused niche, small stores, specialized, lots of locations, and a brand value of over $1 billion, $1.2 billion.
So as we start to talk about the next 25 or the top 25, a couple of brands that folks may not necessarily expect to see up there, an AutoZone, a Sherwin-Williams, but both companies, both brands have figured out, what is their latent value, and how do they translate that equity to a good, bright a store environment or merchandising experience that their consumers really admire, and what returns loyalty and satisfaction surveys to very high levels.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Polo, Kohl's, and JCPenney in a minute, but now we're up at Polo's case. Now we're in the $4 billion range. Next is the top 10. So we're getting into the 6 through 10. And Coach, as I alluded to in a minute ago as I talked to Tiffany, comes in at number 10, $9 billion in brand value, and they are the leader in the luxury retail brands. So they'll be number 10. I think it's interesting that that's a lot of money, and they did place in the retail branding area ahead of Tiffany. Okay, and the next 4, and you kind of might have thought that these would be right where they are. Best Buy, Home Depot, Target, CVS. I think it's very interesting to note that how Home Depot has moved up to number 3 on our list, a company that was accused of kind of losing their direction, not understanding their brand, not having a brand strategy, and now they've really got that together. If you go to any Home Depot store, I think you're going to see that they really are working hard to strengthen that brand. And lastly, should be to no one's surprise, is Walmart. Lee Scott opened this convention, and they truly have a very interesting brand score. Walmart saves money, live better. I think what's interesting here is the number. I mean, this is an enormous number. $129 billion is what we estimate the value of that Walmart brand. And they have done a lot lately to work on that brand. Obviously, they've changed their stores, they've changed their environment, they've focused their attention on areas that obviously the media pointed out. They've even gotten to the point where they have a new slogan and a new tagline. But they are $100 billion more than Best Buy is when it comes to the value of this brand.